Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average pun-making swearwolf that loves to explore the spookier things in life.
I'm your co-host John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and metapals? In today's episode, we're venturing into the world of past life retrieval and the soul plan. Joining us is special guest, world-renowned psychic medium and author, Corbie Mitleid.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more. All right. Bring us back, John.
All right, now we're back, everybody. Like Ashley said, we have a very special guest, Corbie Mitleid. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Welcome, Corbie. Hope you don't mind. Can I call you Corbie?
Yes. Jeez.
Awesome. I don't know. Maybe you have a nickname you like, or maybe you'd like to be known as...
my friend, my students will very often call me Ma Feathers. You know, there's always room under the wing and an extra worm when you need it, because crows and ravens are my kids. But that's okay. Corbie is good. Corbie is good.
I like Ma Feathers. That's very unique. It's beautiful. So welcome to the show. I'm very happy to have you on. You have quite a plethora of things that you are specialized in. I remember when you sent me all of the different things that you can speak to, I was just like, wow, that is a lot of information. What to pick from? So I have had quite a fascination when it comes to past lives. I know John knows that. So fascinated with it, but I'm also curious how it works. So I was hoping that you might be able to shed some light on the topic for us.
Sure. You know, when somebody looks at me and says, do I really have past lives? I look and say, do you really think you could get it all learned in one? I don't. None of us can. So we need to keep coming back and learning things. Now, one of the things that the audience is probably going to want to know is, but I thought it was past life regression. What's this retrieval? They're actually two very different things, and it's important that you know. You must never have past life regression done by anybody but a certified hypnotherapist or certified past life regressionist. Why? Because when they send you wandering up in the Akashic, you could see a traumatic situation. You could see your death that was very hard. They have the ability to pull you back a little bit so you can observe it objectively and not get PTSD and stuck. So what's retrieval? Retrieval is where I go up into the Akashic for you. You tell me, well, why is it that I'm weirded out with wet hair in my face? And I go to the Akashic and pull something down and say, read chapter 2. It is as valid in terms of the information. It is a little bit faster because I've been doing this for so long. It's like I know the express button on the elevator. Boom. And past lives are important only if they affect you in this life. That's why we don't remember them all. Because if you're a janitor in Des Moines and you figure out you were Napoleon Bonaparte, are you really going to want to mop that floor? No, you don't need to remember that life. But when there is a situation, a phobia, an obsession, a challenge, a person or a place that you don't know why it makes sense to you, but it keeps coming up, that's when you go to past lives.
So that's interesting. I never knew that when they were doing a past life regression, they're actually sending you to the Akashic record. I wasn't sure where they were sending. Like, where do you go get that information from? But wow, I mean, that makes so much sense. We're learning so much about this Akashic record that
I know.
Has been popping up a lot in terms of words that I'm seeing kind of manifested in my area, my environment, so to speak. So that's interesting. A few pieces clicked just now.
Good.
So for hypnosis, when they take a person into the Akashic record, Oh, I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. So is the Akashic record, because I always thought when you were going into hypnosis, you were kind of going into your subconscious, but we're going into the, or I guess I'm not even sure. I don't know. I don't understand it. But where is the Akashic record?
Out there. It's a different plane, if you will.
Okay.
When you go into the subconscious, you can get out of your everyday conditioning. It's just like when you have an out of the body experience. Same thing. Your conscious mind that isn't in the everyday box. It can go out. When people do remote seeing, which is something I've heard of, but I've never experienced, it's like they go out and all of a sudden they are watching their friend in Paris in a delicate operation, and they're in there in the operating room, basically holding their space for them, things like that. Retrieval is where I basically go upstairs fast, directed by what you give me as an example. One of the easiest ones. There was a woman who said, look, I'm really worried about my son. He's 29, still won't do anything important without checking with me first, won't live more than a mile away. What is going on? Is it a past life? So I went upstairs for a minute and said, okay, I'm seeing your son. It's 1944, Utah Beach, so this is D-Day. He's a soldier. He's got some pretty bad shrapnel wounds in the leg. You are his commanding officer. So you scramble over a dune, you pull him over, you take some shrapnel yourself too, but you both get out of there and you both live. And I open my eyes and she's very pale and she says to me, can you see my rank? I said, yeah, you were a sergeant. She goes, he's called me Sarge since he was 3 years old and we never knew where that came from.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Second story. There was a woman who was fascinated by the Underground Railroad, didn't live on the East Coast, didn't have any relations who were in the Civil War, but it was a big thing. Again, go upstairs. Okay, I'm seeing you. There is a whitewashed room with a low ceiling. There are two very tall gentlemen standing by a rickety iron bed, and their heads are bent over because they're too tall for the room. You're kneeling by the bed. The dress you're wearing looks like about 1862 or 3. It's a dark gray serge, and there's black trim on the sleeves and the peplum and the skirt. And in the bed, there is an old black woman who is dying, and you are all grieving because you pulled her out from a Mississippi plantation, and she was almost at the end of the Underground Railroad and freedom for her, but she was going to die and she wasn't going to make it. And I opened my eyes and this woman is sobbing. And she says, I have had this dream for over 20 years exactly, and I never knew what it was.
Wow.
That's when it's important. Don't come to me and say, I must have been Anne Boleyn because I can't wear a turtleneck. Wrong.
So I actually have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you remembered those readings
Mm-hmm.
like really well, like you're right off the top of your head.
Yep.
I thought I don't know what I thought, but I was under the impression that maybe once you've done the reading for somebody, like you just forget about it.
Most of the
Or
time
does
that
it-
is absolutely true. But
Gotcha.
these were so profound, and they were at a psychic fair where she and I were sitting together having a private reading. So I have the time to process those. But most of them, no, you're absolutely right. It's in, down, and out. Because otherwise, they all get muddled.
Right. Okay.
But it's like a medium remembers some of their most profound times of reaching on the other side. Same thing.
Right. Right.
When did you first learn that you could reach onto the other side, that you could access other planes?
It was a gradual process. You have to start out. I started out as a child. The old comic that there is anecdotal evidence that those of us that have this gift, most of us got a good clop on the head when we were kids. I was 4, sledding down the hill near where I lived. Nobody had taught me how to roll off the sled yet, and I went face first into a concrete bench. Boom. Now, I had a very hard head, didn't even fracture it. But where did it hit? Right there. And from the time I was 9, I knew there was magic in the world, and I wanted to go find it. So fast forward to 1973, when I was a senior in high school working at Spencer Gifts part-time, they had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies then. You had your elephant bell bottoms and your fringe jacket and your deck. 5 years later, everybody else had moved on to roller skates and disco balls. I was still reading with the cards because I thought they were fascinating. So I read for friends for 20 years, kept my ego out of the way, and then all of a sudden in the early 90s, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, hello, you're working for us. Did it part-time until 9/11 when I turned to my husband and I said, I need to do the work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. He said, I believe in you, go do it. So one more year as corporate. After that, shut the door. And for 20 years, it's been 6 days a week. I read 1,000 people a year and I get to get up in the morning. I don't have to get up in the morning. That's very big.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
definitely. That's awesome.
So you said that you were communicating with
Dead people.
dead spirits.
Yes.
Dead people. So when you're communicating with them, do you see them? Do you hear them? Do you feel them? What is your interaction with them?
We almost play.
If you don't mind me asking.
There are no questions like this that I mind because if you don't know, it means your listeners may not know, and this is education. Never a problem. Okay. I am not someone who can just go fishing. There are some good mediums who do that. I mean, the best in the world I ever saw was my dear friend, the late Allie Cheslick. She's up here in Albany, New York, and we called her Chatty Cathy of the Dead because she was. But I work better with what I call the dog tags. Who you want, how they were related to you, the year they died, and how old they were. Notice that doesn't tell me anything, but gets me right into the energy. And then what happens is it's charades. This will mean that they smoked. This could mean they had surgery. This could mean they had an accident. This could mean they had an attitude. I didn't learn this anywhere. This is just what my guides do. And sometimes I will hear something and I will say, it is why I will never do a mediumship gallery in public because I don't know what's going to come out of the mouth. Now, you said everything was on the book. Okay, fine. This is the classic story. It was upstate New York many years ago. There was a biracial same-gender couple. The black partner had died, and her white widow wanted to speak to her. Okay, now, this face, kid from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, had manners. But what came out of my mouth in flawless urban ebonics was, well, shit, if it ain't my white bitch. And I'm going, but the woman in front of me is laughing hysterically and nodding because that is how her partner, Isabel, walked into the house after every business trip. Now,
Oh my gosh.
now, you can't say that in public. You can't. And my ego cannot be in the way. I cannot change the message or ignore it, or that means I'm not really communicating with that person. I'm telling them what they are and are not allowed to do. So mediumship is absolutely a private thing. But past lives I've done in galleries. They're easy because there is a distance between you there. It's not saying that you were this horrible person that maybe I found out you were in 1432 Belgium. That's just a past life. See the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had lives as a robber 200 years ago, it doesn't mean you're going to go rob a bank now.
What was your first experience with, have you always seen or felt spirits or dead?
Nope.
Or what do you remember your first encounter?
With a dead person, let me think.
Or a ghost or whatever you want to call them.
Actually, yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was in 1994. In Colorado, I was working with a woman who very much keeps her work under wraps because, or did, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because she was afraid her kids would be taken from her. We saw a World War II pilot, and we recognized him as Ernst Udet, who had also been a World War I flying ace. And what happened was, historically, he was set up by Hermann Goering, who was Hitler's number 2, to take the fall for the German Air Force. And we did some healing work for that spirit. Well, that night, stuff started flying off the wall, and it was very obvious that the spirit of Goering was very upset, frankly. We tamped it down as best we could. I went home. I was living in Atlanta at that point. And that night, I was in my living room, and my big Maine Coon cat, Oswald, all of a sudden did the big Halloween thing and went upstairs. And I was wearing a big old flannel shirt, and the tail of the shirt stood right up in front of me. And I heard the voice, "Now do you think I can't get in?" And I felt hands around my neck. Now, got that down, but I had to call on my friend Adam. What I adore about Adam is he has a big sign on the astral that says, "I'm a professional. I don't care." And he was living in the Midwest at that point. I called him, told him what happened. And he got himself on a plane, brought a 6-foot ceremonial sword through the metal detector, and it came across golf clubs. Don't ask me how he did this, but he was good.
Oh
And
my gosh.
we basically bottled up that spirit so that I was no longer affected. Now I know much better how to protect myself. And I got a whole pile of wingman around me. But it's things like that. A better time, a kinder time, because I remember my own life as a World War I German pilot. I get soldiers. And the first one was in Atlanta, showed up in my living room, just a little trench soldier, couldn't have been more than 23. And I only saw this much of his face because this was all blown away and it just wasn't there. And the first thing they always say is, "Who won?" You have to explain it's 100 years ago, it doesn't matter. You get them to forgive themselves for killing people, forgive the person who killed them, then you can get them across to the light.
I have a question in terms of the light, because we hear about that.
Mhm.
Like it's stereotyped in
Mhm.
movies. And so when we're talking about the light, and people talk about it with near-death experiences too, depending what your belief system is, the light represents different things. And so my question is when we're talking about helping spirits cross over to the light, what is that space? Is that just a different dimension? It's the next step. What is the light?
What it does is that helps the soul let go from here. Okay, they get caught in the gray spaces is what I call it. But remember, these three, Corbie, John, actually, we're one and done. We do not reincarnate. We're just a personality. And the way I explain it to people who don't get that is I say, let's take the actor Matt Smith. Matt was the 11th Doctor on Doctor Who. He was my doctor, the crazy best friend. But
Yep.
when
Loved him.
he hung up the bow tie and suspenders, he went and got the garter sash and played Prince Philip in the first 2 seasons of The Crown. And when he was done with that, he hung up the garter sash, and now he's this whack job in House of the Dragon. Okay? Think of Matt Smith as the soul, and the 3 parts he played are incarnations. The soul animates
Mhm.
the incarnations. They do not animate in and of themselves. Now, does that mean we snuff out like a candle? No. When we are in our best selves, that's our soul. It really is. The example I like using is, look, my dad was my best friend. Fabulous cardiologist, internist, beloved by his patients. Sometimes when I will do medical intuitive work, he'll come in. And what does he come in with? He still puns terribly. His kindness, his compassion, his medical incisive genius. What is gone because it's no longer necessary where he is? His depression, his anxiety, and his hypochondria. So that part of Jerry Dorkin it stays in the back closet. But all of the wonderful things that came through during that incarnation, that's what the soul brings down when it puts on the Jerry Dorkin suit to help me with my medical intuitive work.
That's really beautiful. I love the visuals. You're helping me really grasp some of these concepts with all of these analogies, and I like it.
Look, words are my drug of choice, and I have been a storyteller for a long time. It's why I love tarot cards, because they tell stories. But then you've got, the 3 cards that weird out rookies, Death, the Devil, and the Tower, and you got to explain to them exactly what's going on. So I'm going to pull them right now, and we're going to discuss them because people need to know. First of all,
I love it.
Tower, doom, gloom, destruction. No. Think of it like the imploding sports stadium. Red Sox want to build a new stadium. They got to blow up Fenway first and clear the ground. So when that comes up, that is telling you there are going to be changes that you cannot avoid. So you have to learn to work with them, run toward change instead of away from it, and you are likely to be better at dealing with it. Not Mr. Horns and a Tail, not even Jack Nicholson and the Witches of Eastwick. The devil card means being bedeviled by something, someone, or some situation, or holding yourself back from your highest and best. And my favorite, the death card. It does not mean you're going to be hit by a bus on Tuesday. It means death of an old way of life, death of what you've outgrown, death of what was never you in the first place. But I will digress and say, those of us who are professionals, when we read at Psychic Fairs, very often we will get a mommy and little Muffin is on her lap. Mommy, 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 want a card, want a card. She goes, just let the kid pull a card. And what are you going to do if you go, oh, look, Muffin, death? No. You have a kid's deck with kitties.
That's really cute.
See? And the kid can pull a card and you can say, oh, look, Muffin, you have a kitty that says, don't worry. And the kid's fine. And your mother goes like this and says, great, now let's get back to the reading. There are little incidents like this for being a professional intuitive that you have no idea you need to know, but you do.
That's genius. That's so great. Because my Muffin would probably be the one that pulls like death or the devil. And I'd be like, yes, this little toddler is the devil. So
No.
So in terms of all of your gifts, it sounds like most of them were self-taught, self-guided. Am I getting that correctly?
Pretty much all of them.
Okay, that's really awesome. Now, most of us, my generation and prior, a lot of that information was not on the internet. Like a lot of people, you can go to Barnes and Noble now and there's full sections for tarot reading and divination and everything like that, but that wasn't there.
Now, Barnes and Noble's labels it self-transformation. Don't go looking for magic in the occult because you won't find it. Self-transformation is what they call it.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you mentioned that because depending which one you go into, some of them will actually put them in the religion section. And it's like, oh, okay. I don't think some people are going to enjoy that being in there, but I did find that they had at one of the Barnes and Nobles near me, there was a big table set up display and it had all of the different books and sets and kits just set up during Halloween time. And I'm like, that's not a Halloween lifestyle. That's just, that's how they see it.
It's when it's safe for them to put it out.
So how did you find access to those things, or was it all just intuitive? This is what this means directly for you when you learned.
Well, remember, I started in 73 and, the hippies were still around. And that's when metaphysics started to be out there. So you would read books, you would find the books. I was very, very fortunate that my first deep exposure to it was with Blue Star Coven in New York City with Tzipora Katz, and she and I are still very close friends. I still call her boss, and she still calls me brat. But I would seek these things out. I would go looking. Now, how did I determine what I was going to be good at? That was the universe. When you get handed your draft notice, the universe kind of goes rifling in your internal file cabinet to see what you got. So what's with me? Theater major at Brown University, acted in New York in the 80s and 90s. So I understand character arcs. Like I said, words are my drug of choice. I can tell stories. And I have been interested in history since I was a wee thing in single digits. So that's where the past life stuff comes in. There can be somebody else who is a good past life person, and you show the two of us the exact same vision. And if they don't have a background, they could say, well, it's a long skirt and a picture hat, and it's in front of something really ornate. Maybe it's Europe. I would see the same thing and go, okay, she's in a hobble skirt, that picture hat, that kind of ostrich feather, and she's standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate. So this is Berlin in 1911 or 12. See? On the other hand, do not ask me to do spirit art because I cannot draw a stick figure with a sharp pencil and a loud prayer. Not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, my artistic capabilities are not that at all. I'm more of a feeler. I feel things. So that's as far as I go.
You're an empath.
Yes. Yeah, that's my limit. I've always said I'm glad I don't see things because I do have friends that, they're like, I see spirit like it's any other person. And for me, it's like, that would be so confusing to know the difference between if that's a spirit I'm seeing or if that's a non-spirit, living, walking human person that's currently alive. So they can differentiate. I'm not, that to me sounds like that would be absolutely confusing.
You will find what you are good at and it will blossom. I can do some medical intuitive, but I'm more like your GP. For me, the best medical intuitive in the United States is my good buddy, Stacy Wells. Stacy can literally look into your DNA and has doctor guides that help her. She has seen brain tumors that people have missed. She saw my cancer when the doctors missed it. She is a genius. So, being a good professional, if you did have something serious medically, I wouldn't try and read it. I would say, you should go to Stacy, because the money is not important. What is important is getting someone to the right person. Now, that doesn't mean we won't charge. We have to live in the world. But I won't take money for what I can't do.
That makes sense. So when we talk about the soul plan, does that go hand in hand with the past life retrieval?
They're sort of connected.
Okay.
Your soul plan is your pre-birth plan. Okay. You come down working on certain things. Now, karma is not bad and good. Karma is actually 5 things: unbalanced energy, which is a neutral; healing, service, contrast, and healing of beliefs. Here's an example. If you remember Ryan White, he's the kid who got AIDS from a blood transfusion in the late 80s before we really knew much about it at all. And his family was a pariah and bullied and all kinds of things. Now, at that point, also, you had Elton John, who was basically trying to kill himself in several interesting ways. But he met Ryan White and his family and became very attached to them, really loved Ryan. Played at Ryan's funeral. Ryan inspired him to get clean and sober, which he has been for over 30 years, and to create the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which has raised over $500 million for HIV and AIDS research worldwide. Old way of thinking would be, Ryan White must have been terrible. Look at that bad karma he got. Understanding your pre-birth plan means his soul said, look, it's going to be a short life and it could be really painful, but look at the result. So he chose karma of service. See that difference? Now, what about free will? Because people say, how can you have that in free will? Same way you can go to college. Let's say you're going to be a physics major. That's your major. But then you can choose gut courses or double major plus lab. Either way, you're going to graduate with your degree. Your degree is your soul plan, your pre-birth plan. How you get there is free will. So you can have both.
I know we had talked to somebody before about sometimes we make a contract with ourselves to come back for an experience, like to experience love or to experience, I'm not sure. She listed quite a few things, but with that, what karma would that fall under?
What? Experiencing love?
Like to come in to experience lessons in specific topics, like
that could be any of them.
Okay.
If you wanted to have karma of service, then you would come in and perhaps you would be born into a family that was Christian Scientist and didn't believe in medicine, but you would fight to go to medical school, et cetera, et cetera. You'd be in service. If it was healing, one of the examples in Robert Schwartz's books, a woman in her previous incarnation had heard her mother shot to death in the room next to her, and it totally destroyed that life. So the soul decided, in order to heal that, the soul was going to come in and have a death experience. So you can take any one of those 5 ideas of karma and fix your life for that methodology. For instance, with me, most of the time I come in as a guy. 80% of my lives, I'm a guy. And I'm your typical guy and probably not that great. This life, I came in as a female because I needed to learn that women are worth more than their bodies and that I would be worth more than my body no matter what I looked like. Now, you don't need to know the whole story. It's in chapter 2 of Your Soul's Plan under the name Doris. Rob has me in the book, both as a channel and a subject. But by the time I was 11, I had a Dolly Parton figure. Things happened. And then in 2004, 18 months after I married the right guy, I had a second primary. I had cancer before, but this is a second primary. But the doctor said, third time for cancer, it's out. We're taking the rack, we're taking the ovaries, and you're going from this Dolly Parton figure to this fat fire plug with permanent side effects in 3 weeks. Suck it up. Now, did I go home and cry for 24 hours? Yes. But I lived the examined life, and I knew I would have to find a way to be okay with it. So I didn't care what the stupid reasons were. I grabbed them. Number one, you don't have cancer. You don't have them. You can't get cancer there. Number two, the top half is not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's, and every woman listening knows exactly what I'm talking about with that. And third, implants means I'll be perky till I'm 93. Okay. So I walked out of Mass General in 3 days, shopped for a bathing suit in 5. Carl and I are still married. We just marked 20 years. I have a completely boring grandmotherly figure at 67. And if you did not know what I used to look like, you could not imagine it. So I learned what I was worth without the looks. It made me a better teacher. It made me a more compassionate healer. And it means that I can help someone else walking the same road. So it was a karma of service. It was a karma of healing. It was a karma of contrast. All of this has been learned so that my soul can go, got all those learned in this lifetime.
So when you're working with people and do you help them figure out what their soul plan is, or is that something that they still have to go through as they journey?
Well, Stacy and I are the only two that still do this work other than the author. And we don't tell you what your pre-birth plan is. You come to us with a life challenge.
Okay.
Why was I born into poverty? Why did my daughter die at 32? Why do my children never get along with me but get along with everyone else? Why do I always sabotage myself with success? Whatever these are. Then we can look and see your karmic challenges. I specifically can show you the past lives and kind of macrame them together to show you what you're trying to learn. And then we help you move forward with it. But you don't just come to me and say, what's my plan? That's like walking into your Russian lit class and saying to the teacher, you've read all the books. Why don't you just give me the cliff notes and, that'll be fine. No, you learn nothing that way. Besides, if you go through all the things you've been through and then see how they served you, it pulls a lot of the pain out. You realize it was the right thing to happen.
Yeah, it takes work.
Mhm.
You're not learning anything
Sure
if you're not
does.
putting the work in yourself. So you mentioned your guides before. You have a team of guides always around you.
Mhm.
And how did you find your guides, or how did they find you? How did you become aware of and being able to communicate with them?
I did a retrieval, not a past life retrieval, but I did something with somebody who said, I'm going to take you upstairs to meet your guides, blah, blah, blah. And who comes tromping across the bridge? But Carl Emil Schaefer, who was one of the pilots that I knew that I had flown with. And I'm going, yeah, what's about that angel? And he kind of just grins and shrugs. But a lot of the pilots that I flew with then came in as guides at first. They're still friends. There's still a very affectionate tie with them. But my guide at this point is more of an angelic presence. The name I use for him is Baruchiel. I have no idea what he calls himself. But it is angelic. It has never been in a person. There have been guides. Raven is a guide for me, always has been. And I will pull your guides for you. But guides change. The way I explain it is, you remember Venn diagrams in math? You had the two circles and the okay. A Venn diagram for spirit guides and angels is a donut. In the middle, then that's an angel. Outside donut, that's spirit guides, because all angels are spirit guides, but not all spirit guides are angels.
Okay.
Spirit guides can be ETs, avatars, dead people, etc. But we all have at least one angel from birth to death. They kind of have our name in the back of their tunic, like camp tags. I belong to John. I belong to Ashley. So
you mentioned that our spirit guides are sometimes people that we've had experiences with in the past. Some are just other spirits. So is there a reason why some of us continue to incarnate and some are still in the spirit realm? Or is it just we come down to, or not down, we incarnate into being a human to learn a lesson and then go back
pure
into
choice.
the spirit world? Or
It's pure choice.
Okay.
And when someone's like, how many times have I incarnated? That's ego. You can't say, I went 37 times, but you had to come down 642. I'm more involved. No.
I'd be like, if you came down that much, you're not learning your lessons. No, I'm just kidding.
Or you really love being human, you know? One of the things that I do, for many years, I wrote for a graphic novel series called ElfQuest. And that's what taught me about human versus other. A lot of the ElfQuest fans adored ElfQuest because it was the world that on some level they knew was theirs. And they never quite felt right on planet Earth. And sometimes when I get clients like that, not that they necessarily knew ElfQuest, but they always didn't feel quite right here, I would always say to them, okay, I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to give you 2 words. And I want you to immediately tell me which one you resonate with. Human, other. And if they're other, their eyes go wide open and it's like somebody sees me. If they hesitate, they're human. Me, I know I'm always human. I love the human experience. And I am often an ambassador for other. They don't scare me. Best way to think of it is if you've ever seen the movie Powder. Powder is other.
I don't feel like 100% human, but I'm not sure if I feel 100% other either. So is there something in between?
It could be you're an ambassador. It could be you are human, but you've had a lot of experiences with other.
You're definitely something else.
With other. John, you say you're definitely something else. I
Yes,
think that's a
ma'am.
compliment.
It is. Of course it is.
That's funny. Embrace your otherness.
Mhm.
Now, when you do retrievals, and because I know that's a question people probably ask, have I been another? Have I been an alien? Have I been on a different planet? I'm sure that's something that's come up.
There have been some, I'd say about 5 to 6% of the people I run into are other.
Is that something you see, or do you feel that before you even have to look into that? Like, can you interact with an individual and feel like, there's something mixed in with your energy that doesn't feel quite...
I never analyze.
okay.
Unless requested. It is part of respecting boundaries. I have something called the rookie session for people who are just finding their gifts. And we discuss it and what are the boundaries, what are the ethics. And one of the things that frosts my tail are drive-by psychic shootings. People watch the Long Island Medium and they see somebody in Wegmans feeling up the cantaloupes, and along comes what's-her-nose saying, excuse me, your Aunt Doris, she has a message for you. Your back tire is bald and you're going to die in a car accident if you don't get it fixed in a week. Just telling you, and walks away. No. For one thing, her PR people went and scouted all the Wegmans on Long Island and chose one. Then they interviewed a bunch of people and made them sign model releases, and then they rehearsed it 6 times. But people who don't know ethics think you're allowed to do that. No, you are not. If somebody ever tries that, listen to me out there. If somebody ever tries that with you, you have a right to say to them, I didn't ask for your message and I'm refusing it. And if they keep following you and insisting, you call the manager, you're being harassed. Now, the same thing happens with healers. I've had to deal with it. I'm working for 11 hours sometimes at a psychic fair. And at the end of the day, my neck really hurts and I'm, working it. And some rookie, little dancing raccoon comes along and says, I can do Reiki. Let me help you. She comes at me. I said, no, please don't. No, really, I can. Please stop. I'm good. And I finally had to go, back off. She goes, you're not very love and light, are you? Well, you didn't listen.
Boundaries are boundaries.
That's right. And it's one of the most important things that I can teach rookies is without boundaries, people are terrified of us. And if they think we don't have boundaries, that's when we get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I have done psychic fairs where I have had rotten vegetables thrown at me and screamed in the face. So we are not all accepted. You have to learn the right way to do things, the polite way to do things, and you wait until you're asked.
Well, and whether your gift is visible or not, whether it's physical, like I can see you touching somebody or not, you are still invading somebody else's space, their
That's right.
autonomy. So consent is always key.
They may not believe So they may think you're the devil, and they may be terrified by what you say. How can you look in my head? Please, that's where compassion has to come in, you know?
Yeah. And I also think that there's a level of just common sense, because even if I'm not afraid of that, even if I believe in that, even if I think there's nothing creepy about it, that's still my space. So if someone comes up to me and is like, well, I'm going to do this to your energy, like, hold on, that's still mine. That's still invasive. That's still intimate. That's still personal. So my consent is key. Otherwise, I'm going to feel violated.
Right. Now, let's take a look at that situation, but using as an example, one of the spiritualists from Lilydale, one of the most brilliant, well-known spiritualist communities in the U.S. If Reverend Shirley from Lilydale sees you and feels she has a message, she will come up to you and say, excuse me, but my name is Reverend Shirley, and I am from Lilydale. I believe I have a message for you. May I come to you? And if you say no, she will say, okay, and walk away. She has to get your permission before she'll deliver the message. That is key.
I love that. I love that approach to it. And I think that if that stuff that is taught, that definitely, like you said, makes it less scary. It makes it less intimidating. It makes it feel less invasive. So people might be a little bit more receptive to this world versus it being a mockery. Although we are transitioning, I feel like, overall into a space where people are listening more. They're open to these topics and these conversations more than has ever been before. Because I know when John and I started this podcast, I was like, well, we're going to talk about this stuff, but how many people are going to skip these episodes? No, we have so many people that reach out and they're like, that was really interesting. That was really fascinating. People that I know that I personally would have never thought would have even entertained listening to that. And they're just like, wow, that was really, thoughtful conversation. And it's like, wow, that's great. I love that people are leaning into the idea that you don't have to physically touch it or see it for it to exist and be very real, and that we are so much more complex than our base senses.
Very much.
So you teach, you guide, you also offer your services to those rookies and above. What is your best method of people contacting you to see what you do and engage with you in these sessions?
Actually, they can't avoid me. They really can't. I'm all over the internet. The website is CorbieMitleid.com. You can find me on YouTube, Medium, Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, all under Corbie Mitleid. Patreon is where I really do my teaching. I have a group. We refer to it as the Nest. That's where I'm off feathers. And we meet once a month, and we have all kinds of stuff. I'm not the only teacher there. We've done past life retrieval. We've done, a lot of them want to learn how to read cards. We've done visualizations, meditations. This month, a friend of mine who is a fabulous shaman is going to come in and give her shamanic first aid kit. We'll have someone come in with crystals. We'll have somebody come in with things like seasonal eating and how to get the vibe up in the body. I mean, everything that I can bring to my students, I do that. And Patreon, I don't have these 72,000 tiers. It's simple. It's $10 a month. Join us, learn. There are one or two people there that are at my level. There are journeymen and there are rookies, and everybody is welcome. Everybody supports everybody else.
What's below a rookie?
None.
Ashley. I'm just joking.
Ashley's below a rookie. I am not going to lie. I am very fascinated with it. It's not the first time I've been told this. Years and years ago, I was told I needed to be connected to my spirit guides. I need to be connected to, and then recently I was told that again, and I have no idea how. And I'll be honest, I'm very terrified on the idea of opening myself up to connect with a spirit guide.
I don't know if this is really reading backwards or forwards, but
Opening to channel?
By Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packard. This is the book that I learned with 30 years ago. It is the best one out there. It's boot camp. It runs you through. It will help you form boundaries, learn how to ground, center, and shield. 3 things you need to do before you mess around anywhere. And it gives you a very solid grounding.
Yeah, I need that then, because I think that's why I constantly, consistently stop myself from opening to like, okay, let's connect to spirit guides. Okay, let's connect to ancestors. Because it's like, I am terrified of opening that door because I don't know once you open it, what can come in, how to close it. And so it's just like, I'm good.
That's actually very healthy. Good for you. And for people who are interested but don't want to learn to do it themselves, that's my book, Psychic Yellow Brick Road, How to Find the Real Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys. This is a book specifically written for someone who doesn't need to learn how to do psychic work themselves, but they want to know how to choose a good psychic and how to use the information.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think, especially now with all of the different guides out there, that having a book out there to help them determine this is how to find what's right for you is just phenomenal. John, do you have any questions? I feel like I've just been like, pew, 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 question.
No, I mean, I had my questions before. I know I definitely am thinking about reaching out to her about some of my past life stuff, because you and I actually have talked about a few things that I was wondering about. But like, yeah, definitely need to figure that out for sure. Yeah, I think it's awesome that, you're not charging outrageous fees and everything else, because a lot of people would, because they can, or they feel they can, and you're just keeping it flat out and open to everybody, and I love that. That's amazing.
John, I've got like 24 different readings that run, your burning question for $25 to the most expensive one I do is a soul plan reading, because I am in deep trance meditation for 12 hours before we talk. So that's money. But if you look at my general hourly rate, it's like a fifth of that, because I want to put this in people's hands. There is a sweet spot between what's fair to them and what's fair to me, and that's what I've gotten.
Right.
Yeah, it's accessibility, and I think that's great to make sure it is accessible, because this isn't new. Like mediumship and psychic readings and stuff, it has been around. People think it's a new thing, it's a new trendy thing, but that's been around a long time. But it used to be only for the elite and only the wealthy, and so the fact that it is now accessible to more of the masses, I think, is fantastic. How do you protect yourself?
How do I protect myself?
From people? Because I feel like connecting, and this is just probably me being such a rookie, I don't understand, but connecting to all of these people to do readings and to provide these services creates these inadvertent connections. So do you have a way to protect yourself from those connections and make sure that you don't have all these dangly little tarry attachments?
It's called Been There, Done That, Sold a Franchise. I have been doing this effectively for half a century. Ain't nothing you can present me with that I haven't seen. My guides are there always. I know how to keep my boundaries clear. And because I keep my ego out of it, I'm Teflon. And nothing can attach. Because things attach when you put part of yourself out there. When I do this work, I am completely focused on you. And when we're done, I do a core dump. And it's, I take the Etch-a-Sketch and I do this.
Shake it out. I like that just sketch visual. Just shake it out. I feel like I've learned quite a bit in just a little bitty short amount of time, and also have a lot more questions all at the same time. But love the book resources that you provided. Gonna be definitely ordering those. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with us?
Please. I am 67. I will not be around for another 30, 40, 50 years. We need new intuitives. If you are willing to do the work, if you're willing to play by the cosmic rules, we need you. You're welcome aboard.
I feel like she was talking directly to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Whoever needed to hear that heard that. That's what matters. Yeah,
they sure did. And I hope that I know that whoever needs to hear that will absolutely hear that. Yes. So thank you so much, Corbie, for coming on. This has been amazing. And thank you for bearing with all of the technical difficulties.
I know, and Mercury wasn't even retrograde. Who knew?
I know. Usually that's what happens with us, unfortunately. But yeah.
But we are upon a full moon, and that makes everything wonky around me.
You may be absolutely right.
It never fails.
No.
But I appreciate you coming on. You've been amazing, and I love your stories. You definitely have a wonderful, beautiful propensity for words and storytelling, and I love it. I could sit here and listen to all your stories.
Thank you.
All right, John.
All right. I'm bringing us away. Not taking us. Whatever. Shut up, John. Anyway. I don't know what I'm doing.
You're wrapping
That's
it up?
what I'm doing. That's it. We're cutting all that out.
Or not.
You zip it. Yes. Thank you again, Corbie, for joining us. Like Ashley said, I could sit here and listen to you for hours and just be amazed and awed and everything else in between. So again, yes, thank you for coming on.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if you have any episode suggestions, questions, or comments, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, like we always ask, unless I forget, to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
Until next time.